A little while back, I took a risk and spent money I didn't really have on an old Kawasaki Enduro bike, which hadn't been running in over 4 years, hoping it would be an easy fix. And after a bit of trial and error,
and this was probably a mistake taking this off. Kind of wishing that I hadn't even bothered. Maybe I shouldn't have disconnected that.
I managed, to my surprise, to finally get it started. Then I managed to fix everything to get it through an MOT test and back on the road.
She passed! Oh yeah, what advisory!
And everything was going well, until I decided to take it to work the other day.
Well, that's not great. So, it seems as though there's something maybe stuck in the float needle, because fuel is just pouring out of that carb. So, yeah, not great. Okay, so I was just bouncing up and down on it, like just jumping on the seat, and either I've ran out of fuel or that stopped it. Well, I've got it running again. I think it's not leaking anymore. Okay, we didn't make it very far. Kind of to the bottom of the road. Right, let's go again. Let's see how far we make it this time.
And that time, it did get me home, but it definitely needs sorting out.
And on top of fixing that, there's a couple more things I want to do to this bike, because it's going to be for sale soon.
Because the intention when I bought this bike was always to get it working, have some fun on it, tidy it up a little bit, and then sell it on to someone else who can enjoy it. Then, I can invest the money back into the next bike on this channel. But to do that, I've got to fix the issues. So I'm just stripping the bike down to get to the carb, because that's the first thing on my list, is stopping that leak.
Now you can see here, someone has cut into this, and the reason why they've done that is so they can slide this whole airbox that way. And why they've done that is because these here, these little rubber boots that go in here, are really common to shrink, and then that's what's happened to this one here. You can see it's not quite onto the carb properly. So what they've tried to do is shift the whole airbox across to close that gap, and what they should have done is bought a new one, which is exactly what I did. So I have a brand new one, which is nice and supple, brand new rubber, and hopefully this one's going to be the right size.
So now I can get to the carb, I can loosen the clip that holds it on, pull the airbox back as far as I can to make enough room, and then I should be able to wiggle it out. And now that it's out, I can remove the choke cable.
Now I did actually rebuild this carb off camera with all new seals, so I don't think it's a sealing issue. I'm pretty sure I put a new needle jet in there as well. Yeah, here we go. So here is the old carb, or the old seals, and there is an old needle jet in there as well, if you can see that. So I must have changed that. My guess is there's just something stuck in the float, or in the float needle. Or maybe the float isn't floating, but it seems a bit weird because it was very on and off. There's a few tiny bits of dirt in there, teeny tiny bits. Looks like the ethanol's got to this. I did put E10 in it at one point because that was all I had. So it seems to have made this seal expand a bit, unfortunately. Hopefully it'll still seal. That's what E10 does to your seals. So I know I've already rebuilt this once, but whilst I'm here I may as well blow through all the jets. I'll probably end up causing a problem that isn't there, but it's probably worth doing. But it's definitely clear on the fuel side of things. Doesn't look like there's anything wrong with the needle itself. I think it might have just been a case of something sticking on it. A little bit of rust maybe. You can see all the way in there, and it looks like the float needle seat is okay. It doesn't look damaged or anything. I think it might have just been dirty. Now, while I'm leaving that carb cleaner to dry, there's something else I need to do. As you can see, these filters aren't really doing much.
And I think that's part of the reason why some rust has been able to get into the float needle.
This one's going to be a pain, isn't it?
Now the rotten old filters are removed, I can give the tap a really good wire brush. And with the tap all cleaned up, I can fit the 2 new filters I bought. Except I can't, because neither of them fit.
Very loose fit. Wow, it's not like those filters were doing anything anyway, but it looks like that one might be meant to fit in there, but it doesn't fit. Then this one is way too loose to go in there, and not big enough to fit on here.
But I had an idea.
Okay, so I've just attempted, with the lighter not in here, because there's too many fumes in here, to melt that to stretch it, and it burnt a hole in it straight away. So what I'm going to do is wrap some tape around the mesh on this one, and then try and warm this up to push it in, because this one is the one that goes right at the base, and I kind of think if there's going to be any crud in the tank, it's going to be right at the base of the tank. And this one, there is a filter in the line, and hopefully anything that gets in this pipe will get stopped by that filter.
And long story short, that didn't work either.
Decided that was a bad idea too. What I really need to do is sand this down very slightly.
And a little bit of creative sanding later.
I was thinking to myself a minute ago about leaving this part out, but at the end of the day, this is the reality of it. Not everything goes to plan.
And I'm finding more and more with old parts for old bikes that the reproductions are not really that good, especially if they're cheap, and especially if they're Chinese made. But finding new old stock or finding genuine parts for certain things seems almost impossible.
There we go. Nice snug fit. So we've got 1 out of 2 filters working. This will be for the reserve when it hits right at the bottom of the tank, which is where all the crud's going to be. So hopefully not much will get through this, but then there is an inline filter on it already, so that should be fine.
With the tank all done, I can focus on putting this carb back together. And once I put the float and the float needle back in completely out of shot, then I thought it's probably worth trying to test this thing before I put it back on the bike and it still doesn't work. But it looks like it's doing its job. It's stopping the fuel flow when the float goes up, and then releasing it when it goes down. And I think the float height is where it should be, because it was fine before.
Seems to be alright. It does shut off. But then we said this with the KLR, and look what happened there. It's still overflowing, so something's still not right in that carb. It still leaks.
But this one doesn't. So I can put it back together, and then I can move on to checking the valve clearances. And to do that, I need to remove the cam cover on top of the engine. That means removing the 2 bolts on this side, and the 4 on this side.
Now, full disclosure with this, I have actually done the valves once off camera, because I was curious and I didn't think I was ever going to put it in a video. But essentially what I think I've done is I put them, essentially what I think I've done is I put them too loose. I put them at the loosest they were, the loosest they could be while still being in spec. thinking that because they tighten up, it would be a long time before they'd need doing again. But now they just sound, personally to me, they sound too clacky. So I'm going to reduce them a little bit and put them sort of somewhere in the middle of the spec. I'm going to take these out so I don't lose them inside the engine. It's probably a good idea. As well as these sealy rings. I don't want one of them going in the engine as well if they're... That's just this one that came off easily. I think the others might be okay.
So after a fair bit of wiggling, I got the cam cover off. And then this is when I discovered something which might have been the cause of what I thought were noisy valves.
That might be a little bit too much play in the timing chain. That might be why it sounds clacky. I think I'm going to look that up. Saw a video the other day from 2 Vintage, and the guy said it was meant to be a mil play, but that was a completely different machine, but that's quite a lot. And it does look like I've got a manual cam chain tensioner. No, it might not be manual actually, it might be automatic. Let's try taking it off and see if it's manual. So this just down here, this is the cam chain tensioner, and if it's manual then it should just be a big bolt, but if it's not, it should have a spring or something in it, I think. Yeah, that's sealed. Didn't see, maybe it's an automatic cam chain tensioner on this, but it does seem kind of loose. Can you tell I get distracted easily? I was doing the valves at one point, and now we're looking at chain tensioners. Yeah, see, that's as tight as that can go. I think this must be an oil powered one maybe. Right, I'm not going to mess around with things that I don't know. See, that definitely put a lot of tension on it that wasn't on it before.
And if there's anyone who knows how these automatic tensioners work, I'm sure you're screaming at the screen right now, because I didn't.
Alright, let's put it back in and see if that's any different. I haven't really done anything, but well, there's a whole process for this and I'm doing it completely wrong. See, there's loads of tension on that now. Right, there's a procedure for this and I'm not doing it right. I'm going to go away, look it up and then come back in a second. Okay, I've watched a video and I think I know now. I think when I took that out, it must have extended itself all the way, and now that's why it's super tight going back in, because it's all the way out. And I need to take it off and reset it and then put it back in. Yeah, the guy in the video said there's a worm drive in here which you can get a flathead screwdriver onto. Okay, so should be able to wind this back. Okay, right, I think I just have to permanently tension it, and I can control it myself the other way. So when I put it back in, what I should be able to do is wind it in to where I want it. So this essentially is a automatic chain tensioner, but also a manual one, because you can just wind it out to wherever you like, which is quite cool. Now this is all nice and tight. Cam chain tensioner's back in there. Now I can adjust this by turning it whichever way I want, so it'll tighten and it won't come loose. So I can tighten it right up, or I can release as much tension as I want. So now I need to find out what the spec's meant to be. It's automatic, but it's also manual. Okay, looking online, there doesn't seem to be a lot of people stating how much play should be in this, because obviously it's an automatic tensioner on there on most bikes. So a lot of people, what they say is to run the bike and then adjust it until it stops sounding clacky. I think most of what the noise is my valves though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust it to the point where it's obviously loose. Let it do its own adjustment. Oh wow, that's well loose. Is that how much I had before? That might be a little bit too much play in the timing chain, because that seems like too much to me. Wow, I'm going to try and adjust it to what feels right. Well, that's not doing anything now. One thing the guy said in the video is the spring in these can get weaker over time. So, and the further it gets towards the end of its travel, obviously the weaker the spring is. So it might not have the power to take up all of the slack. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it a little bit tighter. And then what I'll do is when it's running, then I'll adjust it from there. This definitely seems, I think when I first did this, it was like this. So I'm going to adjust it to, is that too much? Or is that too tight? I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what I'm doing right now. So I probably shouldn't be messing with this. But if it's not so loose that it's going to come off, then it can't be worse than it was. I think that seems okay. Let's do the valves and then we'll deal with that when it's running. So to do the valves we need to be at top dead center, which means removing this this cap, which means removing this cap, and then I can rotate the engine to top dead center. I also need to remove this sight glass cap so I can see where top dead center is. Okay, so now I can turn the engine to top dead center. Oh, that might have been it. This will be easy without the spark plug in it, just realised. Okay, with the spark plugs out, or spark plug out, it should be a little bit easier to find it now. It should be straight after the F mark. There's the F mark, there's the T, and it landed right in the middle there. Exactly where we want it, in line with this notch at the bottom. And another thing that I can check as well is that here on the top of where the cam chain goes around the cams, there's a little dot here and another little dot on the other side, and when they're in line with the top of here, that means that it's timed correctly, I think.
So now I'm checking all of the valve clearances, and on this bike we're looking for them to be between 0.2mm and 0.24mm, and all of them are in spec because I'd already done them. But two of them are on the looser side of the tolerance, and this could have been causing them to be slightly noisier than they need to be.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten up this one a tiny bit and this one a tiny bit until they're quite tight on the 23. The other two are very tight on the 23. So I'm going to tighten this one and that one, and then I think I'm going to call it a day on that. I'm starting to think the slight clicking noise I was hearing was the chain and not the valves, even though it was only slight, so I didn't think it was going to be anything major, but I thought it was just that I'd put the valves a little bit too loose. Put a very tight 23. So 0.23 goes in all of them, well, besides that one. So 0.23 goes in them, but it's quite tight, so I'm going to say that's good. Just while I'm in here, I can see that there's no marks on these, on the camshafts, because it's a common problem for these to have weak camshafts, I think, and you can't get replacements anymore, but I can't feel any marks I can feel with my finger on there, my fingernail. So I'm going to say that these ones, luckily, seem to have got a good one. Quick check to make sure my timing mark hasn't moved, and now I can put it all back together. Just going to try kicking it over and hopefully not hear any valve smashing noises. Okay. Seems pretty good. There's a lot of compression going on, but that's not a bad thing. Right, carb back on. So now I need to remove this old carb boot, the one that's shrunk. Well, you can see just how shorter it is in comparison. It looks, I was a little bit worried about this piece, but it looks as though at one point this one would have had that too, and someone's cut it off for some reason. Don't really know why, but we've got it back. So there's a little point at the top here and a little slot in here that needs to line up. There we go. New carb boot is in. Fits quite nicely. A little less space now with that in there. Gotta be careful there because I don't want to stick a screwdriver through it. That would suck. Look at that. Oh wow. That is that is so satisfying to see that carb boot. See it all the way on there. Because it was only kind of hanging off the back of it before. And it just actually fits now, which is nice. So after doing all that, I now need to check whether it's still leaking or not, and also whether it'll even start at all. Right, so I just put some fuel back in it. I'm going to turn on the tap, and fingers crossed we don't get anything leaking out the bottom. Well, the overflow pipe is there. Let's see if I can get a good view. Please don't come out the bottom. Looks okay. I think we're good. I'm going to take it outside and see if I can start it. So it starts and it's not leaking fuel anymore. It seemed like it started a little bit easier as well. So that's at least one thing fixed. There's a few more things to do, but I've been at this for probably 6 or 7 hours today, so I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, so it's the next day. Things I need to get done today will be trying to switch over the indicators and also bleeding the front brake because it's really spongy. And I think it needs some new fluid anyway because it looked quite dark when I looked at it last. Yeah, the fluid looks kind of dark in there. But the thing is, I only have about an hour and a half to do all that, so better crack on.
You might have noticed that these indicators look brand new, and that's because they are, as I fitted them in a previous video. Although they aren't the right ones, and the thread in the back of them isn't long enough to go through the plastics as well as part of the frame, so I had to remove part of the frame. And so I can put it back on, I've bought these replacements with a longer thread, so I can refit this part of the frame, and now the replacement indicators fit properly. And all I have to do is check that they work.
Well, that's the wrong way around.
And wire them in the right way around. So with the indicators wired in, and the right way round this time, I can move on to figuring out why this front brake on it is so spongy. And after I take the cap off the front brake reservoir, it's not hard to see why.
Ooh, that's not very good. That looks pretty manky.
I don't know when this brake fluid was last changed, but it's definitely due one now. So I'm going to try and drain as much as I can out with this syringe. Then I'm going to top it up with some fresh fluid. And then on the other end, by the caliper, I'm going to use the same syringe to try and draw the fresh fluid through, whilst also sucking the old fluid out. And as you can see, there's obviously a lot of air in the system, which is why that front brake felt so spongy. Also found that squeezing the brake lever seemed to make a lot of the air come out the top as well.
Maybe I should have just dumped all of the old fluid out and started from scratch. I thought that would probably be more difficult to bleed. I was hoping all the old fluid could suck the new fluid through, but it looks like it's kind of just mixed with it. I've obviously got a lot of it out because you can see what was in that syringe looks pretty disgusting.
And now it's just a case of repeating the process over and over again, sucking more fresh fluid through the line until the whole line is filled with new fluid. Then I can give it a final top up and put the cap back on.
So I was going to do a service as well, but I've not got time in this video. So I'll have to do it in the next video, where I'm also going to be making some cosmetic changes, a few small ones, and also a pretty big one as well, where I'm going to have a go at something that I've never done before. And if any of you guys are really eagle-eyed, you might have spotted a clue as to what that is somewhere in the garage in this video. But if you didn't spot that clue, then you're going to have to wait till the next video, where this bike will actually be for sale in the description. So thank you everyone for liking, subscribing, commenting on the videos, and thank you most of all for watching this one. See you in the next one.